It was 100% the year of the Kindle. I hate... Okay, sorry, I need to calm down. I can't believe I forgot to say my freaking goal for the year, but yeah. Thank you, Jordan, once again for my Kindle. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're new here, or if you just need a refresher, I'm Ollie, and I'm the one-woman show behind the Walleeze channel. And if you are not new to this channel, you will know that most of what I do here is knitting related. I have a couple of vlogs, but even those are knitting related. But today I was thinking about what I was going to film and getting ready for the podcast and everything, and I started this YouTube channel so that way I could talk about whatever I was interested in at the moment and things that sparked joy in me and allowed me to savor my happiness, if you will. And knitting just wasn't doing that for me today. So instead, what I'm going to be talking about is books. Today, I'm going to be talking about reading and books, all the books I've read this year. I'm going to be going through all of the books that I read in 2024. All these opinions are my own. I'm sorry if you disagree with them. Don't kill me in the comments. It's just what I think. So, I've always loved reading. Always, ever since elementary, middle, and high school. But in high school, once I got to junior and senior year, I got really busy preparing for college and moving across the country, not even across the country, to a different country, because I live in the States, but I go to school in England. And it was just all very, very stressful. And I didn't have as much time to read as I would have liked. And I got into this major slump, and I didn't read more than maybe 3 books in a year. Whereas a book used to take me like 2 weeks max to get through, now it's taking me 4 months to get through a book. So the slump was very real. The slump was very intense. And when I got to school, I was determined to try to fix that slump, but the thing is that I was explaining to Jordan that I just didn't have the space to really move and get books to move books between my suitcases, my homes, and everything, and have enough space in my dorm to be buying books like I used to be reading them and keeping them and all that kinds of stuff. So I was kind of discouraged because I was like, and also I'm on a budget, you know what I mean? Like, I can't be buying these $20 books every time I want to read a book, and if I buy a series and the series is 5 books, that's $100 right there. So it's like I can't be doing that anymore. So it was a whole thing. And then my beautiful boyfriend Jordan, he heard me talking about a Kindle that I wanted, and one day he was just like, "Oh, by the way, I bought you that Kindle you wanted." And I was like, "Huh? What?" And then he's like, "It'll be delivered this day." And then this is the Kindle that I have now, and I love it so much. I was so worried about getting a Kindle because I've always been a physical book purist. Like, I've always loved, I have to have the physical book in my hands, but I knew that a Kindle was going to fit my lifestyle better, and boy, was I right. The Kindle is so convenient. It's so easy. I have so many books on here at one time. So if I get tired of the book I'm reading, I can just flip over to a different one. I have knitting patterns on here, like knitting books on here now, and Libby is so helpful, being able to access like ebooks from my library. And just like, it's so helpful and so much more convenient to my lifestyle, and it allowed me to read so many more books this year. A lot of these were read on my Kindle. Some were also audiobooks. By the way, I count audiobooks as reading. So if you don't, sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. I'm not apologizing for my opinion on how I view audiobooks. I used to not view audiobooks as reading, but then somebody told me, "You're still intaking the information the same way, right? Yeah. You're still having to pay attention to every word, right? Yeah. And you can't just, tune it out partially like you do with a podcast. No, you can't. You have to pay attention. Then you're reading." And I'm like, oh, you're so right, because I'm having the same reading comprehension. Why not count it as reading? You know what I mean? So a lot of these are audiobooks as well, because that just fits my lifestyle as well. Hopefully I'm not going to talk too long. I am filming this video a little differently today, so I can use my laptop, which normally I use as kind of like a viewfinder for my camera, but I'm not using it as a viewfinder today, so I have no clue how long I'm filming. I have a vague idea, but not exactly. So hopefully I won't ramble on too long, but The first book that I read this year was Coraline by Neil Gaiman, I think is how you say his name, but Coraline. I had a physical copy. I read it on a physical copy, but Lord knows where the physical copy has gone. I cannot find it anywhere on any of my shelves. So, yeah. I read it on a physical book, and I gave it 4 stars. Now, something you should know about me is that Coraline is one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't even think it's really scary. I definitely did when I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I don't think it's scary anymore. Like, the concept is freaky, but I don't view the movie as scary anymore. Like, I can put on Coraline and fall asleep. I love Coraline, the movie, and so I never read the book, and I was interested to read the book. The book does differ from the movie, obviously, right? There's some big differences. My biggest difference was that there's no YB. There's no YB, but I actually watched the special features on the Coraline movie, and they said that they had to add YB because you don't get a lot of, like, internal dialogue. Well, in movies you don't get internal dialogue, you know what I mean, from the main character. And so they lost a lot of that internal dialogue with Coraline, and that is where she bounces off ideas and concepts and stuff. And so they made YB in the movie so that way she could have a physical person to bounce those stuff off of. And it was that just made me giggle a little bit. But yeah, my biggest thing was that there was no YB, and the story did move a little bit differently. So I gave this book a 4 stars. And my star rating is not like a hard and fast kind of thing. It's just kind of vibes, if that makes any sense. And I know that's going to be infuriating for some people, but it is. That's just what it is. So I gave it 4 stars. According to my story graph, I finished it on January 9th. For reference, I use 3 different reading tracking apps because they all serve me differently, as well as my own personal one. I use Goodreads because everybody uses Goodreads. I don't really like Goodreads, but it's just kind of a nice central place. Plus, it connects really nicely with my Kindle. So, the next one I use is Storygraph. I'm not the biggest fan of Storygraph's user interface. I think it's just kind of a lot being thrown at you, but it is very helpful. Plus, it lets you track like which edition of the book you're reading and stuff like that, which is very cool. Like getting down to those minor details. The third one that I use is an app called Fable. Otherwise, I would be pulling my stats from that, but it's on my phone and I record on my phone. But Fable is such a good app. It's so like aesthetically pleasing. It lets you keep reading streaks on like, you track what days you've read, you track what books you've read on which days. You can join book clubs and you can be parts of online communities. It's super, super nice. It's honestly everything that Goodreads should have been. But yeah, and then the last one that I use is my Notion, as I just keep track of a lot of my own personal things. But yeah, so that was Coraline. The next book that I read was Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. So I have this physical copy. She's hefty. She's a hefty book. This was a soft DNF from last year when this book came out. How many pages is this? Nearly 800 pages in this book. But this was a soft DNF from last year. You can't see it, but above my desk, I keep the entire Cassandra Clare, Mortal Instruments, Infernal Devices, Dark Artifices kind of thing, and then whatever this one is called, The Last Hours. I loved Cassandra Clare in middle school. I breathed in Cassandra Clare. I have so much like Cassandra Clare like stuff around my room. I have her like special edition annotated copies of the Mortal Instruments over there on my shelf too. I loved the Mortal Instruments, but as time has gone on, I've just kind of, I still love it and I still love these characters, but I just, now that I'm not able to read them as quickly, like back to back, because these have been coming out for years, right? But now that I'm having to wait like years in between installments, it kind of, like this one was I think 2 years from the last installment, and it just kind of makes you lose steam a little bit. I still love these characters. I wish the main characters had just like, I hate. Okay, sorry, I need to calm down because I just remembered that this book series, The Last Hours, revolved like the love interest, main love story for the books revolves entirely around the miscommunication trope, and I hate the miscommunication trope. My parents raised me to communicate my feelings and communicate my thoughts and emotions, and I've carried that into my relationship with my partner, and I think that that is how people should live all of their relationships. If I'm displeased with my friends, I'll be like, hey, what you did, I didn't like. Let's talk it out. Let's figure out how to fix this, how to move on from this, because then they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. I didn't realize you felt that way. You know what? Crisis averted, because I would have sat here stewing for weeks. I think communication is so important. So important in any relationship, romantic, friendship, parental, familial, anything. I think communication is so important. I think it's important to say how you're feeling. If you're bothered, say you're bothered. I do want to back this up. I think choice of words is incredibly important, and is such a vital skill for everyone to learn. But this is entirely communication trope. So much. This book would have been freaking cut in half if they had just talked, if they had just spoken to each other, and it really made it difficult to read. So last year I got through about half of the book. I think I got to somewhere around like right here-ish, and then I picked this book back up in obviously at the beginning of this year, 2024, and I got about this far, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't bring myself to read this at night. I couldn't bring myself to read this during the day. I couldn't bring myself to read this. It was so tough. So what I ended up doing was I ended up switching over to the audiobook and finishing it that way. That was how I had to get through it, but I got through it. I gave it a 3.5 stars because the storyline is good. Okay, I'm back. My dad wanted me to fix something on, like the football game is today, so he wanted me to put it on the TV. But what was I saying? The storyline, I gave this book a 3.5 stars because the storyline of the book was good. I enjoyed the storyline very much. I would like to point out that if you know this series, you'll know what I'm talking about. I think the big bad in this book could have been defeated in the second one. I think he should have been defeated in the second one. But I understand like everything that was going on. I get it. I'm a high fantasy girly. I'm a good fantasy girly. I know. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, you know what I mean? But this book got dropped down so much because of the miscommunication trope. So many characters had the miscommunication trope, and I was sick of it. I was sick of it. Have I said it enough? I was sick of it. I'm so sick of the communication trope in books, and I did not know it was gonna be the communication trope. Otherwise, I would have gone in mentally prepared to be freaking with the expectation of it being a communication trope, and I would have been expecting to be frustrated the whole entire book. But I didn't, and it just never got better. And then it did get better, and then it got worse, and then it got better. So yeah, this finished out the last hour series, and I think I'm fully up to date with everything like that. I have all of the books up there, so I had to get the physical copy of this one. But that's that. The next book that I read in the year was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I don't have it on my Kindle. I got it from Libby, so I don't have the copy anymore. But I really liked Happy Place. I didn't love it. I don't think I'm at a place in my life where I think where I'm at in my life, I understand it, I appreciate it, but I cannot love it yet. Does that make sense? Because I've gone through like high school, like, oh, friendships fizzle, friends move on, friends don't understand that like you're at a different point in your life. I've lost friends because they were frustrated that I was not texting them, and I'm like, sorry, I moved across the world, was insanely homesick, got a teeny bit depressed, sorry I cut you off for like a month. And then when I came back and apologized for that, they just never really forgive me for that. And it's like, that was a hard lesson to learn, that like friendships fizzle out in such a way. But I can appreciate the aspect of like living a life and having friends is hard to combine. But since I'm not, in my like 20s and stuff, I'm not able to appreciate that aspect of it. So I gave this book a 4 stars because I did really enjoy it. And I really liked the like second chance romance kind of vibe to it. It didn't feel like, obviously it was very obvious that it was a second chance romance, but it wasn't like overtly a second chance romance. It just felt like they were going in 2 different places, and it was like right person, wrong time, or they just needed that break to grow individually. I appreciated that. yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about Happy Place because it wasn't one that I was like enamored with, or one that I had like major issues with. It was just one that I enjoyed, I liked, and I appreciated the message behind. There was some good quotes in there. I've been meaning to read more Emily Henry. I'm just not a super big literary fiction girly. I'm trying to creep into that. But it's baby steps. So I think the next one that I'm going to try is Book Lovers. I've heard a lot of good things about Book Lovers. Either that or Beach Read. But Beach Read, it feels kind of like I need to wait till summer and make it a beach read. You know what I mean? But yeah. So after Happy Place, I read The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. Mark Oshiro uses they, them pronouns, I believe. So I'm going to try to remember that. But I was very, 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 very excited for this. I pre-ordered, did I pre-order a copy? No, I didn't because I don't have a physical copy. But I got it on Libby to read it for this. But I was so excited for Sun and the Star. I love Nico D'Angelo from the Percy Jackson. Oh, I guess I should say, this is like a spin-off of the Percy Jackson series. There's a character in there named Nico D'Angelo, and this book follows him and his boyfriend. And I love Nico, and I love Will, and I love the little sneak peeks that we've gotten at their relationship. And when I heard that they were making a book solely about them, I was like, I'm sad. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. You've got my attention. We are good to go. This book wasn't written because it's like joint author. I don't know if it was written partially by Rick and the other part by Mark, but it did read as someone imitating Rick Riordan's style. I will say that. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. But some of the writing did feel a little bit like, oh, we're trying to imitate Rick Riordan's style here, which is a little bit odd at times. But when it really counted, I wouldn't say that there was like a difference. It just didn't feel disingenuine when it really, really mattered. Like when we're having like super heartfelt moments, it didn't feel like disingenuine. It just kind of felt like, example, if you are aware, I'm going to name off names, but if you are aware of the Percy Jackson series at all, Chiron, like the camp director, not director, he's like a director of activities or something. He's like a mentor figure to all the characters in the book series. And he makes like little quippy jokes and stuff in the original series, and some of the jokes here, but he's not known for being like a jokester, being funny. They kind of made him feel like a little bit slapsticky in this, and it was just a little bit like that feels a little disingenuous to Chiron's character. But the rest of it was, like I said, when it really counted, when it really mattered, it didn't feel disingenuous, it didn't feel wrong, it didn't feel forced or anything like that. Just some of like the funnier bits were a little bit forced. But this book made me laugh out loud multiple times. It's great. The Percy Jackson series holds a very, very special place in my heart. I've loved Percy Jackson since I was 10 or 11 years old. Rick Riordan made me want to be a writer. I love Percy Jackson, I love Rick Riordan, and this book was just a wonderful little addition and spin-off to it. And I loved seeing Nico heal and seeing a character that is supposedly super, super happy not be so happy and have to heal from that. And I love that. So the next book I didn't put a review on. I don't have like a star rating for it because it's a memoir, and I don't like putting ratings on memoirs. I can talk about how well they're written, how well they're formatted and put together and things like that, but I don't really want to put a rating on someone's life story, you know what I mean? So I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and I did this in an audiobook format because that's what was available. That's what got to me on Libby first. I've been wanting to read / listen to this book since it first came out. I was big into Sam and Cat. I wasn't really big into iCarly. Weirdly enough, I was big into Sam and Cat, but not into iCarly. And Jeanette McCurdy plays Sam Puckett. I think her name is Sam Puckett in both of those shows. So, she was obviously a big part of my childhood, and to hear like obviously that gripping title, I'm Glad My Mom Died, I was like, what? Excuse me? I must know more. So it genuinely hurt my heart. I will say, if you want to read this book, read the trigger warnings for this book first. There is a lot that happens in this book. She is so much stronger than any of us ever knew, and it hurt my heart to hear some of the things that she had to go through, genuinely. It was rough to get through at some points, but it was also interesting to hear all of this stuff that we had no clue was happening, like a morbid interest in all of this, because we had no clue any of this was happening. And it's just I don't really know what else to say. I don't know how to phrase it properly, like my words are getting all jumbled, but I will say that I think she handled this beautifully. I think the way she wrote it was very poignant. It was very it didn't embellish anything that didn't need embellishing. It was very kind of matter of fact, and it wasn't in a like, oh, pity me kind of way. It was just kind of like, this is what happened, this was my childhood, and this is how I am as a person now. And it's just kind of recounting all of that and things of the like. And yeah, it was very well written. And she was the voice in the audiobook. She was the voice of the audiobook. She narrated it. So it was very interesting to hear it literally coming out of her own mouth, her own story coming out of her own mouth. And I hope that she was able to use this book and the audiobook as like a very cathartic healing experience from all this. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the writing style of it. It was very interesting to read. Do look up the trigger warnings before you read it, so that you are fully prepared. Okay, the next book, I really loved this book. I really, really loved it, and I thought I was going to love the rest of the series. I didn't love the rest of the series quite as much, but the first book was brilliant. I loved it, ate it up in a couple of days. You couldn't have pried it from my cold, dead hands. It was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's the first book in the Inheritance Games series, and I gave it a 5-star review. I read this on the physical book, but it was from the library, so I don't still have it. But yeah, I loved this book. The pacing of it was great. I've discovered that I really like fast-paced books this year. I mean, I always knew that, but having it written down in front of me, I'll get to that later, but having it written down in front of me, I was like, oh, yeah. I really liked this book. I liked the whole concept. I'm gonna kind of speed through the rest of the series. I read this series like back to back to back, so I'm just gonna kind of speed through and combine them and join them together a little bit. But I loved this first book. It was such an interesting concept, such good openers. I loved hearing, like, meeting all these different, like, fun, eclectic characters. I forgot what that word was for a moment. And watching this story, like, unfold and being provided clues as the reader and just being like, oh, I know where it's going. And then a new clue will be introduced and you're like, okay, maybe I'm clueless. Maybe I really don't know where this is going. So it was really, really good. And then you jump into the second one, The Hawthorne Legacy. I gave that one 3 stars. I attributed this kind of like quick drop off to it just being like second book syndrome, you know what I mean? Where like the second book is kind of filler. It's just kind of providing you with more information so that way you can get into like the really, really big, hard hitting conflict in the third book. So it kind of dropped off for me and I was just a little bit bored. It took me just a little bit longer to get through. I had to like sit and be like, okay, we're gonna read until we get through 10% of the book. The Hawthorne Legacy I had physical too, but I had like markers throughout it, kind of like checkpoints. That's how you know that it was starting to struggle for me to get through, that I had to create checkpoints for myself to be like, get to this checkpoint today and you'll be good. We'll call it good. We'll call it even. But then you get into this third one, The Final Gambit, and I gave this one 4 stars, although I would probably drop it down to like a 3.75 stars because as far as endings go, it was an ending and, you know, it did tie up all the loose ends, but I wasn't like super, super enamored with the way that it ended. If you've ever read The Inheritance Games, I just don't think that choice that Avery made at the end seemed to really fit the whole character, especially after she went on this whole arc about like not wanting to play games with people's lives like this, and then she decides to make a game. It just didn't seem to like click for me. I was just like, that seemed dumb. I think the giving away of the money was much more up Avery's alley than it was the creation of the game. But the actual like ending of the hunt and everything like that, I think that was done well, but I just really didn't like Avery's choices like towards the end. I also don't think, now don't hurt me here guys, really, please, I'm sorry if you don't agree with this, I'm not the biggest fan of a love triangle. I'm sorry, I'm really not. It has to be done really right for me to enjoy it, because it's just so frustrating to me of like, I love him, but he loves her, and she loves him, and it's like back and forth and all this kinds of stuff, and it's so frustrating to me. I'm like, it's just so annoying, and there's like a big love triangle, and it was so clear to me who Avery really liked, and she just wasn't acting on it. And then when she did, other guy was butthurt about it, and it was all a bunch. It was just a lot, and I just didn't like it. I didn't love the love triangle, but the actual ending of the main plot line I did enjoy. I didn't enjoy that last little bit where Avery decided to make her own game. I do think that the next book, it's kind of labeled as the fourth book in the series, but also as like a bridge book between them. The Brothers Hawthorne. I do think that cleared up a lot of the answers. I still don't like it at all. I still think it's dumb, but it cleared up a lot of the answers. But I gave this book 3 stars because it did clear up answers for me, but I didn't love it. I really didn't love it. I think Grayson was annoying. I think Jameson was annoying. I think they added Gigi, and I think it was just kind of, I know Gigi was introduced in the original series, but I'm like, okay, I didn't really want to know that much more about Gigi. I wasn't like super intrigued by her character, but now I'm learning a bunch, and now I am kind of intrigued, and but also I don't care, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm interested, but you've lost me. I'm interested, but I'm bored. Does that make sense? Like, I want to know what happens, but I'm too bored to keep reading. And I do think it was generally interesting, like the plot of like this kind of, I don't remember what it was called, but this kind of like underground nature kind of vibe, where we introduced like Rohan and stuff like that. I liked that. So that's why I got those 3 stars for me, but I'm just not the biggest fan of Grayson as a character. I'm not the biggest fan of Jameson as a character, so to have a book entirely centered around them was a little bit of a struggle for me. Next book that I read this year was Chalice of the Gods by Percy Jackson. I obviously just went on a whole rant about how much I love the Percy Jackson series and how much it means to me. That being said, do I think that this was a cash grab book that was released in tandem with the Percy Jackson series, like TV series? Yes, absolutely. Did I still sit here, read it, and eat it up? Absolutely. Look, it's a short little book. It's got nothing wrong with it. I bought this special one. This is like a Barnes & Noble special copy or something, and it came with the actual like recommendation letters that Percy has to try to get from this. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, these are not the gods that he gets recommendation letters from. He gets a recommendation letter from Delphin in this book, but he does not get a recommendation letter from, at least not in Apollo. Not Apollo yet, because the second book of this like little trilogy is already out. He didn't get one from Apollo, and nor did he get one from Aristeus. The second book is all about him getting a recommendation letter from Hecate. Okay, it's a little bit interesting. Anyways, back to the book. I rated it 5 stars because this is such a nostalgic read. This 100% was made for the people that grew up with Percy Jackson and are now adults rewatching the series and rereading books and all that kinds of stuff, because some of the jokes in here a little bit more adult-like. What I mean by that is like they're still kids, but it's just like referencing like little side references to like cigarettes or drugs or like things like that. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to whack my desk. You probably heard that. But yeah, so it is definitely 100% made for the grown kids who used to read Percy Jackson when they were younger. I loved it. It was so silly. It was kind of, the whole point of this is that Percy needs to find recommendation letters to go to college from the gods, so he has to do little quests. This was the first quest. The second book that I'll talk about later was the second quest, and they're kind of pointless, they're kind of stupid, but I love it, and it's just kind of like such like a happy nostalgic read that there's nothing really to dislike about it. Truly. I had a great time reading this. I read it super quickly, and it was the last book that I read in January. Yeah, I read all these in January. All of these in January, guys. We're not even into February. But I never said my book goal for the year. This year, my goal was to read 24 books, and I read 30 books. So I did surpass my goal. And yeah, very happy about that. So anyways, back to your regular video, because I can't believe I forgot to say my freaking goal for the year. But yeah. Okay, the next book that I read is part of a series, and I did read the series kind of back to back. I'm going to talk about them all in one chunk. But that is the Naturals series. I'm going to talk about them all in one chunk. I read a few books in between because of like Libby holds and stuff like that. But the Naturals, the very first book, I loved. It was described to me as Criminal Minds, but for young adult, and I couldn't be more correct. I loved it. Cannot say how much I loved it. You can ask my boyfriend. I ranted to him so much about this book. I had so much to say while I was reading it. I don't really have much to say now because I'm trying to like keep my thoughts succinct. But I loved it. It was so good, and I was so excited to get into the second one, and it didn't fall in. This is another Jennifer Lynn Barnes book, which is the same author as the same lady that wrote the Inheritance Game series. So I was worried about a second book syndrome, but the second book still hit. I gave it the first one I gave a 5 stars. Can't remember if I said that, but the second one I gave a 4.75 stars because I had some parts where I dipped that I didn't really love. We had a little bit of a love triangle peaking, if I can remember correctly. I don't think it actually amounted to anything, which was good. But I gave it a 4.75 stars. There were just a few dips throughout the book that kind of brought it down from a 5-star for me. Then the third one, All In, I gave it a 4.25 stars because now this was kind of where the second book syndrome hit. We kind of dragged a little bit. But the last one, Bad Blood, I gave a 4.5 stars because I did really enjoy that ending. I loved just kind of seeing everything, all the characters finish up, and they're all they've come so far from when they first joined, and then especially our main character, I don't remember her name, I'm so sorry, but I just remember that a lot of character development happened, and then there was a little novella that happened that definitely didn't need to be written. I gave it a 4 stars, kind of lost a star because it didn't need to be written and it was kind of pointless, but it was kind of cool. I did really enjoy. I love an epilogue. I love seeing a 1 year from now kind of vibe. I really hated the Harry Potter epilogue because I feel like it kind of ruined all of the character development that we did all throughout the 7 books, but whatever. So I was a little bit worried about this epilogue. I'm like, are we about to ruin all this character development, all this character growth? But no, it was just a very good enhancement on everything. It was very nice to see everyone in their element and things of the sort. Really, now that they're out in the world doing real things and stuff like that. So, yeah. Overall, really, really, really loved the Natural series. I read it super, super quickly. It says here I finished the first one on February 5th, and I finished the second one on February 10th. And then, even with the Libby holds and everything, I finished the third one on February 16th, and the fourth one on February 24th, and then 12, which is the little novella. It's a short little novella, 100 pages, 140 pages or something. And I finished it on the same day that I finished the 4th book. So, yeah, I loved that series. I ate it up. One after the other. I was so enamored with it. I loved it so much. But yeah. Okay, the next book that I have is a little bit out of my norm, but it was very, very much recommended to me by a friend. And it's called Marigold and Rose, a Fiction. There you go. By Louise. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it'll be on the screen somewhere, obviously, because that's what I'm planning on doing. I gave this one a 3.5 stars. It's a very short little book. It's a very cute little book. Only reason it got that low of a rating from me is because it's just not my usual style. And honestly, 3.5 stars isn't bad for me. 5 stars is it's perfect. I adored it. I have almost nothing bad to say about it. 4 stars is I liked it. I had my complaints. And 3.5 stars is I liked it. It's either not up my alley or it's I had too many complaints about it to really rate it higher. So it's only 48 pages according to my computer here, but it is about it's the story is told from the viewpoint of 2 little baby twins. So you get a Marigold and a Rose point of view, and they talk about what it's like to be a little twin. And they're literally babies. They're just little tiny babies, like infants. So it's an interesting read. It's not up my alley. I would not have read it if I had not been recommended it, but it was a very cute read. I'm sure if I was a twin, would have hit me a lot harder, because there was a lot like of talk about like being so connected to a person, but you're also so different, and you wanted nothing more than to be disconnected from them, but you don't know what you would do without them. So I think that kind of message would be a lot harder hitting if I was a twin. The friend that recommended it to me was a twin, so I imagine it was a much more poignant read for her than it was for me. But yeah. The next one that I read was also a memoir, so no rating, but it was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I thought it was very interesting, and I thought, another thing of like, I was too young when Britney Spears' whole thing was happening. I was aware of her, but I was too young to really understand like what was going on. And obviously now that I'm older, I knew about the conservatorship and all that kinds of stuff. So it was interesting to hear it all and kind of connect these puzzle pieces that I had from when I was younger. Knowing what I knew from when I was a kid, and then also like how she was portrayed in the media when I was a kid. I remember being like 7-8 years old and being told by like the TMZ shows that my mom used to watch, just have on in the background and stuff, like, oh, Britney Spears was supposed to hate Britney Spears, was supposed to hate Britney Spears, but she really did, looking at this book and everything, she really did absolutely nothing for us to hate her. She just was slapped in the face by life a little bit, and then her dad came in and ruined everything. But yeah, I thought it was a very interesting read. Once again, look up, there's a lot of stuff that happened in her life, so look up kind of warnings and things that it's going to mention before, to if you're someone that needs that. If not, just go in with like, there's some hard to read bits, there's some hard, I used the audiobook for this, but there was some hard things to listen to, but it was heartbreaking to hear what she had to go through and how far she's come from that. So yeah. The next book that I read, I gave a 5 stars, and this was very, very out of the ordinary for me. I'm not a big fan of poetry. I'm really not. Sorry. I never have been. I never probably will be. I just not the biggest fan of poetry. I just don't get it the way. I don't hate poetry. I'm just not like a big fan of it. But this author was pulled up on my TikTok For You page, and then was like, oh yeah, I'm offering a special one of my books for free today. And I was like, might as well, right? So I picked it up and I read it, and I gave it a 5 stars. I gave it a 5 stars. It was, I can pull it up on my Kindle. It was the most beautiful book of poetry that I have probably ever read. And it's such a simple book of poetry, but I loved it. It just hit me right in the heart. I'm a lover girl who waited so long to get my person to love, and now I finally have my person to love, and I'm long distance, which sucks sometimes. It really does. And so this was so good to read. I don't even know what to say. I was in such awe of it. I cried like 6 or 7 different times when reading this. I read it all in one sitting, and it was just so, I cried through about half the damn thing. They're all about loving someone. I don't think I even said the name of the book. It is In the Event This Doesn't Fall Apart by Shannon Lee Berry. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book of poetry. I think you should absolutely go read it. It's through the lens of loving someone and a relationship and the ups and downs that you go through that. And I just think it was genuinely one of the most beautiful books of poetry that I've ever read, and I loved it. And my Kindle case like tinted pink. Anyways, what was I saying? Loved the book. 100% recommend that you go read it. It's available on Amazon for ebook or print, and I think it is such a good book. I think everyone should read it. It's so cute. It's so cozy, and I just cried through half the thing, and I love it so much. Okay, the next one that I read, I know people really, really loved it, and I'm sure I would have loved it too if I wasn't so frustrated. It's Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I gave it a 3.5 stars, which isn't a terrible rating, I might add. It's not a terrible rating. I just didn't really enjoy this. I thought Connell was really frustrating me, and I thought it was just like, there was just so much where I was like, I would have done so differently, and it's frustrating me, the choices that you've made. It is frustrating me to know and the choices that you have made and how they are affecting you, and now you're bummed by the consequences of your own actions, and it's just so frustrating. And yeah, that's all I'm really going to say on it. I'll probably reread this one later in life, and I'll view it differently, but right now, where I'm at, I just think it was very frustrating. I did like the ending. I thought it was very cute, very pretty, but I think it was very poignant for them, but I had too many complaints about this book on how frustrated it made me feel, which honestly proves that it was doing what it was probably supposed to do, but I was very frustrated, and that put a sour taste in my mouth about the book, so yeah. Next book that I read is one that I adore. I cannot say it a million times enough. I adore it so much. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Loved it to no end. Actually, hated the twist at the end. My initial rating for this book was 4.5 because I hated the twist at the end. I thought it was cheesy. I thought it was kind of expected. I thought it was kind of too tropey. I thought is exactly what we would have thought would happen. But this book was so good. I've never hated a main character more than I hate June. I flew through this book. It took me a little bit to get into it, and then once I got into it, and I was like, what? And then it kept going, and it kept going, and it kept going, and I barreled through this book. I carried my Kindle with me everywhere. You can ask Jordan. You could not tear this Kindle away from me. I wanted to be reading this book at all times. I loved this book, and I talk about this book regularly. I talk about this book regularly. I think about this book every single day. It's on my mind at all given times, which is exactly why I moved it up from a 4.5 to a 5-star, because it has not left my mind since I read it. I think it is such a good piece on the publishing industry. I think it is such a good piece on June's personal lack of growth and lack of development. She was such an infuriating main character, but I think R.F. Kuang does a beautiful job of making a main character that you hate so much, but you are still so interested in and invested in the story. I say everyone that is into reading, everyone that wants to be a writer or anything, needs to go read Yellowface, because this is such a good piece on the industry and things like that, and I just think it's so good. Loved Yellowface, cannot speak its praises enough. I will scream it from the top of the mountain, from the bottom of a ditch, wherever you want. I'll scream how much I loved Yellowface. I loved it so much. And then immediately following Yellowface, I read The Grandest Game, which is the spin-off of the Inheritance Game series, and I hated it. I rated it 2.75 stars. I thought it moved entirely too fast, and as far as plot and character wise, it moved entirely too fast. We compromised so much character development. We compromised so much. I feel like Gigi went from being a character that I might have been interested in reading more about to being so incredibly one-dimensional that I just didn't care. I didn't care. And we met a new character and genuinely couldn't tell you two things about her. I think one of her parents is dead. Both of her parents? One? I don't know. I think, one of her parents is dead. That's the one bit of character development that we got from her, and I couldn't bring myself to care about any characters, because we sacrificed so much of that character development, and then it was expected of us to care about them at the end of the book. And my theory for this is that a lot of plot and character development was sacrificed in this book because it's going to be jam-packed as far as plot wise in the next books in this series, but I can't be bothered. I cannot be bothered to care. Honestly, I might not even read the next book in the series. That's a lie. I definitely will read it just for sake of completion, but I'm just not excited. I'm not looking forward to it at all. Didn't really like Grandest Game. Was very disappointed because I loved the Inheritance Game series. So, okay, the next book that I read was The Queen's Gambit, by Walter Tevis. I loved the TV series of The Queen's Gambit, so I was excited to read the book. The book is a little different. There's some subject matter that was taken out in the TV show that is in the book. I read this half on my Kindle and half audiobook, kind of combined. But I enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It's fairly similar to the TV show as far as like general story and vibe and everything. Didn't think it was possible to love Elizabeth Harmon more, but I love her even more in the book. She just genuinely does not give a crap about anything anyone else has to think or say, and I love that about her. So I don't really have a ton to say on that, but yeah. The next are 2 audiobooks because I just, for some reason, I had tried reading, okay, let me say this. I had tried reading Throne of Glass on my Kindle and in physical copy, and I just couldn't really get into it. I don't know if I was in a particularly slumpy moment or I just wasn't in the mood for it or something. So I used the audiobooks for I used the audiobook for Throne of Glass, and then I went on to listen to the audiobook for Crown of Midnight. I want to read these just because Sarah J. Maas is such a big name in the fantasy world, and I've never read her books, and I just kind of want to check them off my list. I do like the concept of Throne of Glass series. I gave the first book a 3.5 stars just because I think Sarah J. Maas was younger when she wrote this, and it does feel kind of very tropey. It does kind of feel very of the genre. But I liked the second one a lot more. I could 100% see that twist coming. The twist at the end of the book, I could 100% see that coming from a million miles away. But yeah. So that is what it is. I gave the first one 3.5 stars. I don't really have much to say. It was of the series. The second one I gave it 4 stars. I liked it more. I liked the development between characters and relationships, and I liked the conflict. I thought that was a good conflict. It kind of annoys me. I mean, I know it happens. It has to happen with every character where, like, they finally get happy with their romantic interest, and then something happens, and then they're, like, separated, and they don't want to speak to each other anymore. They're in a big argument. I think that was a good development. I think the way it happened between her and whoever, if you haven't read the series, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But I think it was good. I think it was well done. I have not really been compelled to pick up the rest of the series. I'm honestly just waiting. I have them all saved on like Libby. So whenever they come in on Libby, that's when they get listened to. So yeah, because they have on Libby they have like 27-week hold times. So it's crazy. Okay. We're getting into the last few books that I've read for this year. So I next read The Wrath of the Triple Goddess by Rick Riordan, and it's the second book in the whole Percy Jackson recommendation letter series, and I gave it 4.75 stars. I've talked about it in other podcasts, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here. Again, silly, frivolous, loved it, loved seeing the old gang back together. The only reason it got 0.25 stars off is because there were so many topical references in this, which would not bother me, except they do not match at all with the topical references in the original series, which started coming out in 2005. So there's been nearly 20 years of time in between them, and it's crazy that like 5 years apart in their time, we're talking about Hilary Duff's music career back to back with Beyonce and her Cowboy Carter album that came out earlier this year. So it's like, just takes me a little anachronistic, and it just takes me out of it. And I didn't really enjoy all the references, but I loved the rest of the book. Okay, the next book I had to read for school, but it was The Midnight Library. And I've been wanting to read this book since it came out in 2020. Haven't gotten to it. This was finally my push to get to it. So I did read it for school, but I did enjoy it. I did not like how the main plot did not really pick up until about 50% of the book. It was kind of more meandering plot until then. I do feel that the book at some parts was a little bit preachy about its whole like life's possibilities kind of vibe. But I enjoyed it overall. I do think Nora was a little annoying towards the end, how she expected these lives to be absolutely perfect. It's like, it's still life. It's still not going to be perfect. And it also frustrated me truly, like, the shock that she felt when it truly shocked me, the like shock that she, I mean, it truly annoyed me, the shock that she felt when she lived a life where she made different decisions, and so the people, like, other people's lives were affected by that. And it's like, yeah, you didn't make those decisions, so you weren't there to teach that kid piano. You weren't there to help that old man. Obviously, if you didn't live at that house, you wouldn't have been there to do that. I feel like that's so clear. I feel like that's so obvious. But it just frustrated me a little bit towards the end. I do think it had a very cheesy kind of life is worth living kind of vibe. But obviously, that's a good message to have. It's a good line. It's a good whatever, right? So it got a 3.75 stars out of me because I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the read. I didn't hate reading it for school. But it was just a bit, I had my grievances with it. The next book that I read was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter. This is not my normal genre, but it is kind of, it's more romance leaning, but it is like mystery kind of thriller vibe, which is my kind of niche that I love really, and I have been loving this year. But I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5 stars. It was a fun read. It wasn't reinventing the wheel or anything, but I did enjoy it. I did appreciate how we were getting all these kind of like seemingly random facts throughout the whole thing, and I was just confused, and then they really did all tie together at the end. One thing I will say is that they thought this whole thing was a test. If you read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They thought this whole thing was a test initially, then they thought it was a murder, but then it still ended up being a test, but we never like jumped back to that. We like threw it out the window, and then we just found out at the end that it was a test. Really, like it really was. That just kind of threw me off a little bit towards the end, but I did enjoy it. It's a cheesy little romance at times, but I didn't hate it. It was cute. Yeah, I liked it. So 3.5 stars for me. Okay, the next books that I'm talking about I've been rereading this series. These are the first 3 books. These are the main series. I haven't gotten to like the spin-off books yet. But I'm reading them on audiobooks, but I have the physical copy because I read them in high school originally, and I loved them so much I bought the whole series in physical copy. But I'm listening to them on my, like, via audiobook now. So that is the Truly Devious series. So we have the first 3. These are the 3 main books of the series. They're not the spin-off books, so it's Truly Devious 1, Truly Devious, The Vanishing Stare, and The Hand on the Wall. So I'm going to kind of group these all together because I have read these a long time ago and I'm rereading them now. I think they're very interesting. This one obviously is so good. It's the first of the series. It introduced it. I gave this one what did I give it? I gave it a 5-star because I love the Truly Devious books. I think it's such a cozy kind of dark academia vibe without being pretentious. I do think that Stevie is an annoying character, but that doesn't come into play until later in the series. So this one, she's unimpeded currently, but yeah. Then in this one, it's just like a continuation. It's again the second novel. There's nothing really to speak on it, so I give it a 4 stars. It's just nothing really to say. It was the second book. Moved the story along, unlocked new plot points, advanced character relationships. This really propelled one of the relationships in the book, and I like it. And then this one, it's a good ending. I remember really enjoying this one when I read it for the first time, and that holds true today. I really enjoyed it. Stevie gets really annoying the farther we go into the story. Stevie gets more and more annoying. But it's a good ending to the story, and I remember reading this and knowing that there were more books in the series, and I'm like, where are we going to go from this? Don't really know how we're going to move on from this. But then I found out that the rest were spin-offs. But yeah, so Oh, I didn't say what I gave this one. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. So 5 stars, 4 stars, 4.5 stars. So these are the first 3 in the Truly Devious series. I'm not talking too much about them because I did read them a long time ago originally, and I'm rereading them now, so I don't feel like I have anything to say other than Stevie's kind of annoying and the plots is very interesting, so it carries me through. Again, another book where I don't like the main character, but I'm interested in enough to keep reading. Also, if you've ever read this series, or if you're going to read this series, Nate is 100% my favorite character in the whole entire series. I love him to bits. Nate is my spirit animal. Truly, 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 truly. I love Nate so much. I would do anything for Nate. And he would hate that I said that right now. So, but I love the series. If you like murders, like murder mysteries and things of the sort, I think you should absolutely read Truly Devious. I sped through the series the first time that I read it. I think I read Truly Devious in genuinely like 3 days, and that was because I had school. That's the only reason it took so long. I think I sped through Truly Devious so fast the first time I read it. So yeah, if murder mysteries are up your alley, I think you should absolutely read the Truly Devious series. Okay, that is all 30 books that I read for the 2024 year. I surpassed my goal of 24 books. So I was very, very happy, very, very pleased with all the reading I got done this year. I'm going to raise my goal up a little bit more for 2025, see if I can beat that. But yeah, I think I had a good mix. It was 100% the year of the Kindle. Loved my Kindle. Thank you, Jordan, once again for my Kindle. He hears me talk about it all the time, how much I love my Kindle. I love my Kindle so much. So now that I've gone through all the books, that's exactly where I'm going to end it off for today's video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff that you know how to do down there. Tell me your favorite books of 2024 down in the comments. I'm always open to book recommendations. Obviously with this list, you can see I have a kind of style that I enjoy. But yes, absolutely. Tell me your favorite books of 2024, what you're looking forward to reading in 2025, anything you want to tell me down in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. Go out, be kind, seize the day, and savor your happiness. Bye, y'all.